Who has had the greatest individual AFL season since 2010? Was it the famous 2016 Patrick Dangerfield season for Geelong, or even that famous 2014 Gary Ablett Jr. Gold Coast season? Let's start by looking at Chris Judd in 2010. Now, despite missing the first 3 games, in 2010, Chris Judd won the Brownlow. I mean, let's just take a look at some of his goals. Now, statistically, he didn't have the most dominant season, but everyone knows Chris Judd was a leader, and he led Carlton to stability and professionalism. They made the finals that year, but unfortunately lost in that round 1. Now, Judd was explosive. Much like he was at the Eagles, at Carlton, he wasn't much different. He would burst out of packs, his eye for goal was brilliant, he was very defensively astute, and as a leader, he was probably the best on this list. Just look at this guy. Brilliant, scintillating, electric. But many argue Dane Swan had a better season than Judd in 2010. Now, Swan didn't win the Brownlow in 2010, but he did in 2011. But was his season in 2011 as good as Chris Judd's in 2010? Well, statistically, it was. And through the Brownlow votes, it was also. Now, Swan won with a record amount of Brownlow votes that season, 34, the most ever. He racked up 760 disposals. I mean, who can forget Swanee? He was a big game player. The Anzac Day games, the rivalry games, the tummy rub celebration. As a midfielder and as a forward player, he was unstoppable. He was that small, electric, brilliant burst of speed. You couldn't catch him. His eye for goal was on a different level. He was the player who would get you 40 touches and 3 goals every game. And who can forget that season, he also spent quite a few games away doing some high altitude training, where he came back and dominated the AFL and solidified himself as the best player at that time. Now, he led Collingwood to the grand final, but unfortunately they came short, losing to Geelong. Now, much like every player on this list, he made the All-Australian team and he won a club best and fairest.
Bad bounce, Swan, chance here, he can run this Swanee, he's going to latch his back and take them on, gets to the pocket, and yes he does! Swan, Pendlebury, Swan, bursting through Swanee, he's kicked his...
He was scintillating to watch, Dane Swan, and he was a cult hero. But was Dane Swan's season in 2011 as good as Buddy's that same year? Now, Buddy's best season was obviously in 2008, where he won the grand final for Hawks and he won the Coleman, kicking over 100 goals. But this is since 2010. So in 2011, Buddy had another standout season, winning the Coleman medal with over 80 goals. Unfortunately for him and the Hawks, they fell short that season, losing to Dane Swan's Collingwood side in the prelims by 3 points, thanks to a famous last-second Luke Ball goal. Now, we all know how good Buddy Franklin was, and unfortunately he couldn't win things like the Brownlow because he was a forward, and statistically he couldn't have the great games of these midfielders. As a forward, he was the best of that generation, as the best forward player many people have ever seen. He was agile, he was fast, he was almost a midfielder who was just really tall, really strong, playing